Adam, I really miss your basement.
Welcome to The Behaviorist with Work Wisdom, where we help you adopt high-performance mindsets, behaviors, communication, and culture. Today, I am your host, Adam Rohrer.
Woohoo!
And this is a different role for me today. I am usually the man behind the scenes as a producer for The Behaviorist. But today, we're turning our focus to The Behaviorist Podcast itself as we're celebrating our 100th episode.
Miraculous. Yay. Unbelievable.
Wow.
And today we are grateful to have the Behaviorist co-founders, Kedren Crosby and Sarah Colantonio, here with us in the studio to celebrate our 100th episode special.
High five, high five, high five, high five, high five. We did it.
And in today's episode, we're going to take a fun walk down memory lane as we reflect on the past 99 episodes. The highs, the lows, the laughs, the insights, and everything in between, including maybe some behind-the-scene tidbits from our co-hosts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
So let's start. Take us back to the beginning. What inspired you both to start this podcast? Kedren, why don't we start with you?
Oh, my goodness. I wondered who he would start with. Well, our winning aspiration is work wisdom revolutionizes achievement. And so we still do, think, okay, what would revolutionize achievement? And so back in whenever it was, 2017, we thought the answer to that question, one answer to that question was a podcast, because we could take our ideas and we could infiltrate the world, helping people to figure out how to have both joy and high performance, balance, or at least work-life integration. Yeah. And so, but also back in 2017, podcasting, it was sort of trendy.
Yeah.
It was sort of like the lower back tattoo of 2017, right?
That is the perfect analogy.
I heard a comedian say it. I stole it. But it was really like everybody was doing podcasts.
I have a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to be on my podcast? It was like a pickup line. So
what
anyhow,
what are you doing tomorrow? I'm recording my podcast.
Podcasting.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I think we thought it was an answer to our big question, but honestly, seriously, we were also getting really interested in efficiency with our coaching. And so I was finding myself 100 times a month explaining the same concept. And I thought, there's got to be a better way.
Right. This is a way that you could just point them to the podcast.
Exactly.
So you don't have to say all those words over and over again.
100%. So in the spirit of me talking less, I thought, let's create a library of our major concepts, and then I can just point people, assign homework. And it worked out perfectly, really.
Yeah.
And thinking back to that very first episode, do you have any memories of recording that episode? How were you feeling? Nervous?
I would like to hear Sarah's perspective on that.
On the first episode?
Yeah. How were we feeling at that first?
Well, this podcast was a debate. You asked what inspired us to do it, and I was not for it.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was really against it. I was pretty grumpy about it. Because it felt like a lot of extra effort. But what I am hearing now is I don't think I wasn't coaching at the time. I wasn't one of the coaches. And so I didn't experience that continual, many of the same concepts come up again and again. And so I wasn't on the same page as you. And to build up this library that we have now feels really good. So I'm glad that you pushed things ahead, even though I was like, really, we're going to do this? We're going to ask people to spend their Sunday afternoons talking about positive organizational behavior. And also we do so much research to make sure that the podcasts go well.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot of work.
And we'll talk a little bit about that today too, I think. But I think it ended up making us more efficient and more accessible. not everybody's going to come in for coaching, but maybe they'll listen to a podcast.
Yeah, but that first podcast, I'm pretty sure your face said seething most of that hour and a half. And we actually recorded it with another organization downtown Lancaster. It was a beautiful space, floor to ceiling windows, but the technology was garbage. And Adam, I have a question for you. What do you remember about our first podcast?
So as you said, I was not a part of the first podcast.
That's right.
But I love podcasts. So when I heard they were doing a podcast, I was willing or anxious to listen. And yeah, I was not pleased with the sound quality. So that is when our relationship began with podcast and host relationship.
Maybe you could explain why Kedren said she missed your basement.
Yeah, that's probably why, right? Although...
Yeah. Well, so we moved from that.
Oh, yeah. We
glorious
started in
space.
my basement. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was great in your basement. I know.
Yeah, it worked out well. And just like naturally, the sound quality was good because it's carpeted and there's couches and stuff. So the sound doesn't bounce around. But a little cold, a little damp. But other than that, yeah, it was good.
I know, but it was so fun. So all these, high power leaders were driving out to your house in suburban Lancaster County, going into the basement recording, and you meet them again today, and they'll be like, I was in your basement. I don't know. I just thought
I remember
it was great.
I always have to tell my family or whoever was home, I was like, hey, maybe you can take the dog for a walk for like the next half hour just so he doesn't bark while we're recording.
While Barack Obama is here. Yeah.
All right. Thinking back, were there any episodes or guests in particular that surprised you when recording?
Well, I was good at having ideas about incredible podcast guests. I remember saying, wouldn't it be incredible if we got Amy Edmondson, the mother of psychological safety, to be on the podcast? But something a lot of people don't know about me is that I get starstruck. If someone's famous, I cannot, I'm tongue-tied, I can't talk to them. So Sarah had no problem reaching out to Amy Edmondson and saying, hey, do you want to be on our podcast? And she said, sure, I'd love to. So that was unbelievable that she joined our podcast. Liz Orr was the same thing. I was like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if Rude Ass Enneagram could be on our podcast? And Sarah just reached out and she said yes. And then from there, we became, I would say, friends. And she's on the team at Work Wisdom. So those are two, I would say, big surprises.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I love the idea of just reaching for the stars and just asking anybody who you want to come on. All they can do is say no, right? That's the worst thing that they can do. But sometimes these people like Amy and Liz, like maybe they'll say yes because they're interested, or they listen back to your episodes and like, hey, this sounds like something that I would like to be a part of.
Yeah.
I did ask Mark Brackett, who's written a lot about emotional intelligence, and he didn't write me back. So,
well, that's the worst they can do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it didn't really hurt my feelings. I, guests that I think were surprising to me, Amy Edmondson was one for sure, because it's same. I mean, I think I was pretty starstruck when I was doing the interview too, but I was surprised that she was willing to do it, and she was great in the interview. And then I was kind of surprised that Liz wrote back so quickly. But one of my interviews with Elisa Jones and actually Alex Rohrer.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That one was they did such a good job in that episode, and I love that episode. Yeah. And Elisa tells the story that is so good. It is like, so the episode was about high performance, and she talked about, she gave some wisdom in that episode that I didn't expect, and she had never podcasted before. I think that's what she said. So that was actually really surprising. I hope I handled it okay, because I was so like, whoa.
Yeah.
But
well, even for me, I remember when we were the early days, the first time you had Jess King on. And she's more of like a local celebrity, but you guys know her, right? You have a relationship with her. I didn't. I was just like, oh, this is cool. Jess King is in my basement.
Who's in my basement?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Do you have any behind the scenes moments or bloopers that you can think of?
Well, I'm going to share this. We had a really celebrated, incredibly smart person with all kinds of letters, and they showed up high as a kite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know that. All right.
Wow. And so it was different to podcast with someone like that. And and it ended up being a great podcast. But that was
Noticeable?
Probably you did some editing on that one. But that was different.
Yeah.
Super stoned.
Interesting.
Yeah, super stoned celebrity type kind of
I
thing.
guess it can be helpful. Something that's behind the scenes that I think of just generally that's not as funny as being really high is that we have here at the office the living room that we call the green room. And so oftentimes people will congregate either in the green room before or after.
Yeah.
We should have mics in there. Like,
Oh, that's a good
sometimes the conversations are so amazing in there, and that's kind of fun. And people just they feel good, they feel happy. And I don't remember where I read this, but I remember reading somewhere that on Sunday afternoons, people there's like this lull in. Sometimes people have like the Sunday scaries and things like that. And so if they have something to do where they're expected to do something and kind of show up, it's really good. And so we were convinced that this was this kind of like happy accident that our podcasts are typically we record on Sunday afternoons, and it just helps people feel really good because they're doing this thing and they get to talk about something that's interesting to them. So
Grown-up youth group.
yeah, it's totally like
It's tone up, yeah. But with like leaders. Yeah.
So like a little behind the scenes. So we record on Sundays, but we will do oftentimes several episodes in one day.
Yeah.
So, we'll schedule them basically every hour. And because we have a rotating group of co-hosts and guests that come in, a lot of times they don't know each other also, which is cool. So they will come for their scheduled time. Sometimes they'll hang out longer in the green room and talk with everybody who's here, and or people come early. So that's a cool community aspect of the podcast that probably we hadn't thought about doing, but it just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
It really.
It may be one of the best parts
Yeah.
of this whole experiment.
When I would say this was a blooper on my part. So at one point, I think you were leading the podcast to start, and then it switched over to me, and I kind of was the lead on it. And then now you're the lead on it again. But when I was the lead on it, we had this one recording day, and I did a really dumb thing, which is we tried to do 4 episodes, and we decided to also do video. So we had Hung and his girlfriend at the time, I can't remember her name, coming in to film. And because I wasn't assertive enough, I ended up having to host every single episode, and it was not good. Like I was by the last one, I don't even know what I was saying. I was so wiped out. And adding on the complexity of recording it through video.
What I remember about that day is that it was just a ton of work, like just for everyone. The whole production of the video and the audio and the rotating cast of people. I mean, I thought it turned out cool with the video. It turned out well, but it was a lot of work.
The video looks gorgeous. Nobody watches the videos.
Right.
I think we have plenty of listens, but it did not. It went on did it go on our fail wall?
Well, I think in June we're going to re-experiment.
Okay, well, maybe you'll have more success.
We're going to embrace the value of simplicity. Single camera, something like that.
All right. So looking back, I'm curious if there's an episode or even a moment from an episode that you're most proud of.
I've got a couple.
Go.
In 2020, I don't know if you remember a little international incident COVID hit.
I don't
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Kedren and I were in New York City when everything came to a head. And I am so proud of Kedren. We were in our hotel room and she was like, as everyone is like losing their minds and we were losing clients and it was all coming to a head. She said, we need to record an episode. So we call them pajama podcasts. So we use our iPhone and then you do the editing. And that was a really important episode. And I am very proud of it because when I wanted to shut down, when everybody wanted to shut down, Kedren was like, this is the time to step up.
And if I remember correctly, that episode did really well
It did.
because it was something that people probably needed to hear or wanted to hear at the time.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm especially proud of that one. I'm really proud of the episode that I did with Elisa and Alex on high performance. I think the topic of high performance mindsets is an important one for leaders. So I was really happy with how that one went. Mm-hmm. And another one that I'm proud of that I had nothing to do with is Kimberly Pfeiffer hosted an episode on Enneagram 1s.
Oh, it was so
and
good.
It's one of our best episodes.
Yeah,
It's
Kimberly
really-
she's so gifted.
I think all of those Enneagram episodes, even as somebody who is only one Enneagram, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear a
Yeah.
group, because what we would do, if you don't know listeners, we would have a group of people who are all that Enneagram number together.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was hosting who's also that Enneagram number, and just them talking about how the Enneagram, affects their lives or how they can change things they do depending on, what they know about their Enneagram. I found it really interesting.
Yeah, that was a cool series that we did. I really like when I think about what I'm most proud of, I think it's configurations of chemistry. So I really like the Mike McKenna, Vanessa Filbert, me energy. So we've done a couple, like the one on the bear was awesome.
Yeah.
And the talent density one was really good.
Well,
so I love that configuration.
Even today we did Alex and Ryan. They've
Yeah,
done
that's
it
right.
several times together. I
Yeah.
think they have similar personalities. It just works really well.
Good report. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of get into a groove. So I love that. And this isn't sort of an episode that I'm proud of, but I love that we've tried to work in music in all kinds of funny ways. Without going to jail. So I saw the first one that we did one on authentic communication in 2018, and we used missing persons.
Yep.
What are words for? And so it threw out. Anyhow, I think that's just been a really fun thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, and we did a clip. You cut in a clip from Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
which
that
I
was
thought
great.
That was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple times where you wanted me to cut in some kind of song that deals with the episode, which I didn't know exactly the legality of that in the beginning, but
We took a risk.
We took a risk.
Yeah.
And so far, they're still up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how has doing this podcast changed the way you view your work? Kedren, you already mentioned an example of that, how with the coaching and how you can just point people to podcast episodes so you don't have to say the same things over and over. So that's a way that's sort of simplified part of your job. But I don't know, do you have any other examples?
Yeah, a few. Yeah, we've kind of created a community of people who listen to The Behaviorist. So I'll be at an event and someone will be talking about conscious uncoupling or some wackadoodle idea that we made up, and they're giving it legitimacy, and other people are saying, yeah, that's legitimate too. So it's sort of creating a community of people with shared language. And so that's been really significant. It also changes my work in that I'm always actively listening for themes. So for example, this week, there were 4 times I heard people craving information on this one topic. So at noon today, we're going to do an impromptu episode on that idea, just because it's like you're listening and you're realizing, oh my gosh, the whole world needs to know about this one thing right now. Let's research it. Let's get something out ASAP. So that changes how I do work.
Yeah, I think because it's a way to address what's going on right now. I'm thinking about another episode that you did about courageous leadership with Jess King and Sam
Bressy.
Sam Bressy. And like I remember listening to that in my car and I started to cry. It was so moving. It was really good. But I think that's the thing. When you can if you're listening, then you can comment on, you can do a whole episode on things that people really, really, really need to hear. I think that's why it made me cry, because it was something I needed to hear.
Well, and that was neat because that was teamwork.
Yeah.
So Allie was the one who noticed on the website that article from 2017 was getting a lot of hits. And so she flagged it on Slack. Yeah. And Hunter was like, how about, so it was really a neat teamwork.
Yeah. I love that.
This next question I'm actually really interested in. What are some things listeners might not realize actually go into creating an episode? My work mostly comes on the back end. So up until today, as I'm the host, I had no interaction with you guys on the front end about what goes into creating an episode. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of what we've been saying, which is if we're hearing something again and again, then that usually means we should do an episode. If we're seeing what seems to be getting a lot of energy on social media or on our website, then that usually makes us want to do an episode. But Kedren said this early on. You really are a wealth of ideas. You don't run out of ideas. So that helps.
Yeah, the ideas part isn't hard. I think the matchmaking happens before we get in the studio. So let's say, so this idea came up this week. It was actually equanimity. I heard it 4 times this week. And so this morning when I was meditating, I realized we need to record something on this. And so I knew that one of our clients happened to be in Lancaster, who lives in Pittsburgh. So I texted her, and then I texted somebody else and said, I think you two would be perfect to be on this episode. Can you be there? But usually it's not quite that lucky. Usually you have to be a little more artful about, okay, who's got the right chemistry together and then the right experience to weigh in on this topic, and how do we get them there? So I think that sort of guest list, crafting the dinner party,
So it seems like maybe one of the challenging parts of this podcast is coming up with new ideas, because we've been doing it for so long, so many years, and 100 episodes at this point. So are there any ideas or topics that you haven't tackled yet that you would like to?
Like 150, another 100 for sure. And some of them are going deeper into topics that we started scratching the surface on. I also love the configuration that's Dylan, Sarah, Kedren. We did one on elegant leadership. We did one on genius teams. I feel like both of those could have 2.0 for sure. Yeah. People are hungry for more information on talent density and conscious uncoupling, especially right now with all the layoffs that are happening. I'm as I get older and closer to whatever retirement is in this day and age, I'm thinking more about wisdom traditions and how wisdom traditions can inform our work, which is why we have work wisdom. But I think maybe being a little more explicit about that in the future could be valuable to our listeners.
Yeah, I think the one topic I'm interested in, we're recording on at 1, so that's good. But as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about how interesting the Enneagram is, and I feel like there's a new series on Enneagram brewing.
I think you guys are really good also at tackling the subjects that come up as what's happening in our world. And so I don't know, that's always changing. So there's always going to be new topics that come up.
Yeah. What do you think, Adam? Are there topics that you feel like, gosh, why haven't we tackled that? Or maybe we should tackle that.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think about it.
One thing that I've thought about in the past, so I'd like to hear more from local business owners, leaders in our community. I mean, we do a good job of doing
Yeah.
that, but just sort of looking outside the box. Maybe someone we haven't thought of, but we know is like a prominent business owner, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, I realized last night you're the only one who's probably listened to all 100 episodes.
Maybe multiple times in
Yes,
some
since
in
you've
some
edited
cases.
them. Yeah.
Looking back now, 8 years ago, however long it's been, if you could give yourself one piece of advice back when you started this whole journey, what would it be?
Sarah, what do you think?
I would say get over yourself and get into it.
I kind of think maybe, what if you get a sponsor? What if you get like a corporate sponsor? That has come up a few times, but then we always walk away from it and say, well, we're the corporate sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And we might feel like encumbered then. We might feel like we have to do what they want. Now we can just do what we want.
Yeah.
Have a little
Yeah,
more
as far as
autonomy.
that goes, that's interesting because I think you guys do such a good job at being authentically yourselves and tackling the subjects that you want to do. And, you know, not saying that we'll never have a sponsor in the future, but it's not something we've even really looked into at all, right? Because we're allowed to do whatever we want. And that's kind of the cool part of the behavior. So we didn't get into this to have a sponsor and make money, right? Your goal is to inform people about what's happening in the world, right? And how to be better leaders and how to better live in this world. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my take on the sponsor thing.
Yeah. And if you think about the origin story of the Behaviorist Podcast, it wasn't a podcast. It was a column in Central Penn Business Journal. We wrote articles, and the editor, we had lunch at the press room, which is now defunct. And we had, he said, you know, maybe you could take your articles and also podcast on the same topics.
Okay.
And that's where the idea came from. And then we realized we preferred podcasting to writing those articles, and Central Penn Business Journal changed, and we just ran with the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the other piece of advice is that this is such a good idea. It's such a great way to stay on top of things. And really, the biggest piece of advice next to it is that the sound needs to be unbelievable. So I don't know if you know this, but Kedren and I were in San Francisco. We were having dinner with some folks, and one of the people there is like a podcaster, a serious podcaster. And she thought that our podcast was a way that we made money. It's how she makes money. The sound is so good that she was like, you mean your brother-in-law is your producer? And I was like, yes. So
that's good to hear. Yeah, I didn't know that.
She had no idea that it wasn't like you didn't have your own producing company that
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that would be the other thing too, that to make sure that the tech is on point.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You know, I think it's also been interesting the way that the behaviorist has taken on a life of its own that's maybe separate from work wisdom.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it could be, you know, a couple years ago when Allie said, let's create a separate website just for the behaviorist, it was sort of, it was confusing to me, but then she did it and I was like, oh my gosh, we should have always done this. We should have always had it separate. So it's almost like it's got its own separate brand that work wisdom could be led by one group of people and the behaviorist could be led by another group of
Well,
people.
haven't we had hosts that aren't a part of the work wisdom team in the past? Yeah, and we had so many guests that obviously most of our guests are probably not a part of the work wisdom team.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm going to throw this random question at you that I did not let you know of in advance.
Oh no.
Looking back, can you pinpoint one episode in particular that is your favorite, and it can, for whatever reason? Maybe you just enjoyed the experience of recording it, or just how it turned out in the end.
I think of all time, the Enneagram one is my favorite of all time, but there's some good ones in there. I enjoyed listening to that one the most.
Gosh, they're like my children, all 100 of them. I love them all equally, Adam. I think I really like the talent density one. I loved Coaching 101 because it really explains our philosophy around coaching. But learning to love uncertainty. A lot of people hate listened to that episode and texted me, "How dare you?" And I always feel like that's good. You know, when we push someone to think in this really hard way, I think that's good. So that might be the provocateur in me, but learning to love uncertainty with Dr. Chris Peterson, who's also a Buddhist priest and an anesthesiologist, and I think we said some pretty challenging things there.
All right.
How about you? Do you have a favorite?
I was just thinking about that. So thinking about it from my side of the table behind the scenes, I really like the ones where we incorporate music like we were talking about or anything like that, right? Or clips from movies or shows. I really like sometimes we do, like today we did an episode on Severance. And I think we've done one on Schitt's Creek and other.
The Bear.
The Bear.
The Bear, yeah. The Bear. That's the one I was
thinking. Did we
thinking.
do one on Ted Lasso? No, I guess we never did.
No, you've talked about Ted Lasso a lot, but I don't know that we did a specific episode. But yeah, I really like that. Bringing in, talking about the concepts and ideas of these, forms of media that you can bring into your work or your real life and how they can kind of.
Yeah. That could be its own podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's our next podcast. It's something around pop culture and how it can teach you how to be a better, whether it's worker or just human being. What can we learn from these things? Because it's entertainment, but it's also education.
Right. And
it's
there's
edutainment.
For sure. In the past, decade or something, there's this wave of these, especially TV shows that just... They put so much thought into like what they want to convey. It's not just a story or a comedy. Like you walk away from some of these TV shows thinking like, wow, that's interesting. I can somehow bring that into my life. And it, like you said, it can make you a better person watching these TV shows or listening to these songs, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, White Lotus, I heard that the writer has everyone take their Enneagram, and so they use Enneagram on the set. Yeah. So we could definitely do something. Yeah, there's a million things we could do. Okay, that's our next podcast. What are we going to call it?
Yeah, Ted Lasso's coming up with a new season, which is great. And Shrinking. Like they really are
amazing.
Yeah.
We did an episode on Shrinking too.
Did we?
I think so. Didn't we?
We should have, because they do real.
We've talked about it
techniques.
in an episode.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I'm sure we've talked about it.
I also, we did this recently, but the episode on Genius Teams that we did with Dylan. So I'm not even that big of a basketball fan, but he uses it often as an analogy, and it's so good. It makes me kind of want to watch basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dylan is such a gifted podcaster for sure. I think that one thing that I think about when I think about the last 100 episodes is this has been, I'm going to cry.
You can cry.
It's okay.
A labor of love.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Because, and Adam said it too, we're not like getting paid to do this. We do this to learn. We do this for the community. We do this for the fun of it and to be helpful.
Yeah.
And so, it is a labor of love.
And it also really reinforces work wisdom's culture, which is a learning culture. So this, like the Harvard Business Review, it's a habit that forces us to stay on the top of our game. It's publicly humiliating if you don't do your homework. Like I kind of didn't for my next podcast at noon today. But I would say, for anyone who's thinking about starting a podcast, which we have some friends that are starting podcasts right now, go into it loving the process. Don't be overly concerned about the results. You have to love the moment that you're recording and the process, the research, the phone calls, the, magic. Because if you're too tied to the results, I think it will break your heart.
Yeah.
All right. Last question on this 100th episode. What is one word that you'd use to describe this journey so far, and why?
Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say collaboration. I have two words, collaboration and community. The collaboration part is more around teamwork.
Yeah.
Just the logistics of it. All of us getting together on this day and having the biscotti out there and the coffee and getting guests lined up and topics lined up.
Yeah.
But the connection and community that happens, it's such a wonderful surprise outcome to it. So I think I like your advice about just go into it enjoying the process because that's the good part.
Yeah, I often think even if no one listened, I would want us to do this.
Yeah. Yep.
It's probably therapeutic for you guys at some point, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And, I think it's also a really great opportunity for empowerment. So it's a low stakes, but sufficiently scary rep for people to speak their ideas.
Yeah.
And so I love it when we have team members like Maria and Carm and Mike and really everybody.
Yeah.
And we say, get there, get your ideas together, get in front of the microphone, let's try this. Let's run it up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes. So it's a really good way to empower our team. And soon you and I won't be podcasting at all. It'll just be everybody else. We'll show up for biscotti and hang out in the green room.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I am grateful to both of you for including me in this journey, but also for sharing with us all of your insights and stories and the history of The Behaviorist as we celebrate our 100th episode. So thank you, listeners, for downloading The Behaviorist, and we hope you'll subscribe. Please contact us through our website, workwisdomllc.com, where you can enjoy Work Wisdom press and productions, explore our modern work tools, and ask questions and suggestions of topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes. And as is our custom, we will leave you with a quote from the eternal icon, Audrey Hepburn. The best thing to hold on to in life is each other. Happy 100.
Happy 100.
We did it!